Oh, give us an action and clap your hands. And
Action.
Very good. So what inspired this story? Why the story? What inspired you to do this story?
what inspired this project is actually a family vacation that my wife and I and our kids took to Frederick, Oklahoma. This has been over 2 years ago. And we saw a statue, a bronze statue on a courthouse square, still there today, of two boys, small boys with their arms draped around each other, which led to a series of questions. Who are they? Why is the statue here? And my family and I discovered the Abernathy boys, the Abernathy family. There are still Abernathy relatives alive today, but these two boys spent a significant portion of their life in southwestern Oklahoma. And in a 4 to 5 year time span, pre-statehood, as well as shortly after statehood, Oklahoma became a state in 1907. These boys did some phenomenal things. They lost their mom in the process. She actually died the year that Oklahoma became a state, but their dad, Mr. Jack was his nickname, Catch 'em Alive Abernathy, he stepped up as a dad and he raised his boys and allowed them to have an opportunity to not only adventure, but face death and even failure. Honestly, some things that as parents we might not do today. And this particular story that we told is a story that ended in failure. It's a story that doesn't necessarily have a happy ending, but it ends with a life lesson. And as far as why this story now, we've told other Abernathy stories in the previous years, but why this story now? It just seems timely that we as a country, we as a state, we as communities, as Americans, as human beings, remember our why, and that life doesn't always go our way, and it's what we do when it doesn't go our way that oftentimes is more important than what we do when life does go our way. So that's the inspiration.
So what's the story of the hat or behind the hat?
Absolutely. The story behind the hat. Actually purchased this hat from, let me say it this way. So I was looking for a hat. I was going to try to find one used and a hat that had the story I wanted it to tell. But truth be told, the kind of story that I wanted a hat to tell, that hat didn't already exist. So we bought this hat and took it to Shorty's Cowboy Hattery. This is not a commercial for them, but we took this hat that did not look like this to Northwest Oklahoma City, and Mr. Scott was so gracious to help me create a story for this hat that is actually brand new, but we wanted it to look like it's over 100 years old. The story that we tell is from 1911, the one where the boys almost die and they lose a bet, and wanted this hat, which has a very unique campaign style crown and the wide brim with a little bit of swagger, a little bit of attitude. Took it up there, and in a matter of moments, right in front of my eyes, with a blowtorch and some soil from behind the shop and the help from two of my children, we turned this hat into something that looks like it's been here for a long time. And believe it or not, this hat's already gotten me some storytelling gigs. And when I wear it to the side, it's got a little bit of swagger, which is, a cowboy story, or excuse me, a cowboy hat is a part of every cowboy story. So it's its story of its own in this whole process. So that's the story behind the cowboy hat.
So what is some of the most memorable things that you can recall from taking this from a stage and from an audience doing it in person, but now doing it actually on video and possibly for film later on?
Wow. That's a truly a great question. So the first thing that jumps out of my mind is getting to do this with my son, a youngest son, and who is 7, about to turn 8. And my wife and I have joked, would we let our kids do this? When the Abernathy boys took this particular trip, they were 7 and 11. We have 2 sons, and when I'm like, babe, would you let our boys do this? She's like, absolutely not. My answer is yes, I would. That's a whole nother conversation. But getting to do this with my son has been really, really meaningful. Getting to do this project with a fellow creative, Jamel Williams, has also been really, really rewarding for me to get to create things that don't just entertain people, but hopefully make the world a better place. The way that this has made me, I believe, I say this humbly, a better human being. It's even given me the opportunity to look at failure differently. That oftentimes the greatest treasures, the deepest rewards in life are not only disguised as hard work, they're hidden behind failure. And in fact, a big question that we share in the project that's really rocked me on my heels is not what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? The better question is, what would you do even if you knew you would fail? And in the answer that the Abernathy boys give, they finish. Even if you know you're going to fail, you don't quit, you finish.
And to somebody who may see this in like 10 years, what do you think their thoughts will be? And what do you think they will take from this outside of what you just said about failure? What is something an outsider who's never heard this story before, and they hear it for the first time, what do you think is going to be the most memorable about what they're going to see and what they're getting to capture and get a glimpse of through this story on film?
Sure. So obviously that could be hypothetical. I'm going to tell you right now, 10 minutes after this video is over, I'm glad that we did this. 10 years from now, I'm going to look back. And I'm going to be grateful that I did this because this project has pushed me personally, creatively. It has pushed me, believe it or not, as a storyteller, to find ways to bring this story alive more visually. It has also given me an opportunity to share something with other people. And I think that's what I'm going to cherish more than the story itself, were the stories that we made because we shared this. So 10 years from now, somebody looks back at this, Lord willing, we're all still here. I hope they get in a vehicle, they take a trip, whether it's to Frederick, Oklahoma, or somewhere else, and they discover something that inspires a passion project for them, or maybe even inspires them to do something with their kids. That's my hope.
So now I want you to look right at the camera, and I want you to just tell people thank you. However, whatever. If somebody watching this, family, friends, somebody in the future, just tell them thank you. Some ending remarks.
Absolutely. So many times I've heard this, that people on their deathbed, their greatest regret isn't what they did. It's the things they didn't do. I'm grateful that we did this project. I'm grateful that you've taken the time to join us on this journey, the creation, the culmination, and now this interview. But also understand too, your story's not over. If you're watching this video, that means your story is not over. And I would just really, in addition to saying thank you, I'm asking you as another human being who could benefit from your life and your work, whatever it is that would haunt you on your deathbed, whatever you would wish then you would have done now, do it.